What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we dive into the news, just a couple quick things. Number one, check out my website, btcsessions.ca. This is where you can reach out to me personally and book me for your own BTC session. We can chat Bitcoin, wallets, proper security, really whatever you like. All you need to do is scroll down to the very bottom. There's a contact form for you there. Secondly, big shout out to the sponsor of the show, Ledn.io. Very happy to be working with them. Now, Ledn is a place where you can use your Bitcoin as collateral to secure a Canadian dollar loan or a US dollar loan in select international markets. So the way it works is you can go to the website, you can use the slider to specify a dollar amount and find out how much Bitcoin would be required. The application process takes about 2 minutes, and if you're successful, then you are funded funds in your bank account within around 24 hours. I tried it out myself a couple weeks back, worked like a charm, and they do have a deal on right now where if you apply successfully for a loan, if that's for you, then they will credit your account with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin. So if you want to check that out, links are down below. And so if you're looking to get your hands on dollars and you would not like to sell your Bitcoin to do so, well, this could be an option for you. And with that, we are going to dive into the news. First up, Bitcoin price is on the move. It broke through resistance. It's above 5,500, which is what it was testing before. It couldn't quite make it past. Well, last night it did. And at times it did jump as high as 56.50 on some exchanges. That's the highest price since November 18th of 2018. So it's been a hell of a ride, but this year has been looking pretty damn good. There's that price action over the past day or so there. That's pretty insane. But yeah, there's been a lot of volume. Now, of course, when you're looking at something like CoinMarketCap, there was a report here from the guys over at Bitwise, and they did call into question some of that volume on some of these dubious exchanges may be faked. In fact, it most likely is. But when you look at the top 10 most reputable exchanges, there was about $1.7 billion worth of total Bitcoin trading within those 24 hours, the last 24 hours. The other interesting thing about the price here is if you do pop over to CoinMarketCap and you pay attention to Bitcoin dominance, those that aren't sure, essentially they put together the market caps of every single cryptocurrency listed here, and they attribute how much of that value goes to each coin. When you look at Bitcoin, it takes 53.7% of all value attributed to all cryptocurrency is just Bitcoin, which is especially impressive when you take into account that there's very little barrier to entry for new coins to enter the market and just be spun up. And not only that, but the market cap is incredibly misleading. So some of these coins, let's say there's, 10 million coins or something like that, and I manage to, I spin up my own currency, Ben coin, and I have 10 million units, and I manage to sell one of them for $10 or $100, say. I sold one coin for $100 to some poor schmuck. Well, given the last price of that coin, it sold for $100. When you extrapolate out $100 times 10 million units, that means all of a sudden my currency has a $1 billion market cap. So that's how misleading some of these numbers can be. So it's especially impressive when Bitcoin with actual liquidity is still holding above 50% dominance, when a lot of this market cap stated on some of these coins is just total trash because there's no liquidity. So anyways, good to see Bitcoin moving up in price. Again, I'm not anticipating huge moves. I don't think we're going to get anywhere near those previous all-time highs anytime soon. But hey, I'll take what I can get. Let's move on. Coinbase is closing down a Chicago office, and it's scaling down work on a matching engine that they were working on. So this has to do with high-frequency trading. Now, when they initially announced that they were going to do this Chicago office in May of last year, they were planning on hiring 100 people over the course of 3 years. Well, it ended up being that they laid off the 30 employees that were there and shut it down. So they stated that really they just wanted to change their focus, and that while this was a setback, they're going to be focusing on other products that they can offer. However, it still just doesn't look great when it comes to Coinbase, particularly that Coinbase reportedly saw $520 million in revenue last year, which was actually 60% less than some analysts expected. Whereas you look at something like Binance, and they got $78 million in profits in Q1 of this year, which is 66% growth compared to the previous quarter. So you see some exchanges that are being very successful and others that seem to be kind of pulling back. And I believe it was Vortex on Twitter, the one Vortex, if you're looking for his Twitter handle, but he quoted this article and said something along the lines of, this is very reminiscent of AOL back in the day, and how at one point it was kind of this shining beacon of the new internet age, and then people realized there were better alternatives and moved on. So could this be that? I don't know. I think Coinbase probably still has some gas in the tank, but given a video that I made on why to delete Coinbase, which I'll link down below, I'm happy to see this change. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let's move on. Lightning Labs has launched their desktop app on the Bitcoin mainnet. So I've done a lot of coverage on Lightning Network and various apps that allow you to utilize the Lightning Network, which essentially enables cheap transactions, nearly free transactions that are also instantly confirmed using Bitcoin. So some of those have been custodial services, stuff like Wallet of Satoshi, Blue Wallet to a certain extent, plugins like Tippin.me. Those are custodial, meaning that you're trusting somebody else with your funds until you withdraw, much like you would with an exchange, and you don't want to leave a lot of money with these third parties. So it's mostly for smaller amounts. Well, Lightning Labs, their desktop app, is non-custodial. You are holding your own funds. Now, this is just one of a number of implementations. So when people refer to Lightning as being centralized, it couldn't be further from the truth, because there are multiple different implementations of Lightning and they can all commingle and work together. So you're not forced to use one platform. It's not one company. It is open source software. So this is kind of leaning, I shouldn't even say that it's leaning towards, it is more geared towards power users. It is pretty tech intensive. You're going to have to know what you're doing. You're opening your own channels, but it allows tinkerers to tinker. And that's what they've said. They do, of course, say that they advise caution because it is new technology. You're still capable of losing money if you do something incorrect. So if you're playing around, do be careful. But I'll read this quote from one of the developers at Lightning Labs. He said, "Driving this release is a complete commitment to scaling the principles that Bitcoin was built on: privacy, security, and self-determination. For that, we need to go beyond custodial solutions and enthusiast guides and deliver a great user experience for everyone." Now, the other interesting thing about this desktop app is that it uses something called Neutrino. No, not the Neutrino blockchain scanning application company that is doing work for Coinbase and was filled with a bunch of undesirable people. No, not that. This is a technology that allows you to run a Lightning node without having to run a full copy of the blockchain. Now, some people have issues with this, but others have refuted them. I'm not going to dive too much into that. There are links in this article that you can go to, but essentially it allows you to have a lighter weight client that takes up less resources and less hard drive space, but allows you to still hold your own funds and verify that you are indeed holding them and not trust any third party with your funds. So, yeah, great developments. Glad to see this. And man, Lightning is moving quickly. Again, it only launched March of last year, and the amount of development, the amount of apps coming out, the amount of under the hood technology that is being implemented here is really quite impressive. And even if some people don't think so, it will be incredibly evident, especially in the coming years, as more and more of this comes to light. And pretty soon, I think it'll be pretty seamless. And in a few years, you may not even realize whether or not you're using mainnet Bitcoin or Lightning. I think the two will just be interoperable and optimized to get you the cheapest, quickest route to your transaction. Anyways, let's move on. A couple more things here. And these kind of all tie together, a few things here, but this was an article out of Bitcoinist, 5 big reasons why Bitcoin can never be banned. And by never be banned, I think what they're trying to say is effectively. Like, you're never going to stop people from using it if they want to use it. So here's their rundown. So they said laws cannot be written against bits and bytes. You can't write laws against code. You can write them, but you cannot really effectively implement them. How are you going to stop people from running code? Even if you say no, people are still going to do it. Best example of this is Napster comes out and it's file sharing, and well, they didn't like that, and so that was it had centralized. It basically had data centers in the U.S. that could be clamped down upon, and well, what happened? They clamped it. They shut it down. Well, what came out next? Torrents. And now torrent sharing, file sharing like that, how do you stop that? You really can't. And you can go and shut down a website like the Pirate Bay, but then how many others pop up in its place? And so it's distributed enough that you can't come down on it. Yeah, and of course this meme, the government banning Bitcoin. Step around. You can't ban open source distributed software. So further beckoning to the previous point, if the software is open source and distributed, you cannot really clamp down on it. It's too widely used. Too many people have access to it. It's shared everywhere. You shut down one node and 10 more pop up in its place. Now, what about instances where the internet can be censored? They've got the Great Firewall in China. You can ban certain things or filter them out based on geographic location. Well, Bitcoin can be broadcast via satellite. Blockstream has put up a few satellites in and around, and this is a photo of the coverage that the Bitcoin network has via satellite. So you don't need to rely specifically on the internet to achieve this. You can broadcast through satellites and mesh networks. You can also send Bitcoin via SMS. Internet down, send a text message. And finally, you can't I shouldn't say you can't. You could shut down the power grid, but I'm pretty sure that's going to cause more problems regardless of whether or not you stop people from using Bitcoin. And to further speak to shutting down the power grid, well, let's move on from there. Power off? Great. Use an OpenDime. If you have a battery pack for your laptop, you can allocate Bitcoin to an OpenDime. It's essentially a stick that you can allocate Bitcoin to that is provable that you haven't seen the private key. So it's provable that it's not spendable, and then you can hand it person to person. A lot of people, when I did my video on OpenDime, which I will also link to, didn't quite get the utility of that. But essentially, imagine instead giving somebody a Trezor. Well, I've written down the backup seed to my Trezor. Well, I could give this device to somebody and then rush home and sweep the private keys, sweep the money from it because I've created a copy. Whereas with an OpenDime, there is no creating a copy. The Bitcoin is the device until you break a circuit in there, at which point it would warn the person anyways that the circuit has been broken and the private keys have been revealed. So that is the utility of this device. And furthermore, we were talking about different ways you could get around the internet being down, like satellite or mesh networks. Well, the same guy who invented the OpenDime also managed to send a Bitcoin transaction via ham radio from Toronto to, where was it? Somewhere in Michigan, I think. Sent to Michigan in a snowstorm. So really, like, radio waves, you can basically be bouncing Bitcoin transactions off the Earth's ionosphere, and it's really so incredibly difficult to censor this stuff by now that I don't think it can ever be done. So I found this a fun kind of dive into that. I will link to all of the articles I discussed below. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it there. So again, if you enjoyed what you saw, please hit up my website, hit the sponsor Ledn.io, and links for that is down below. You can smash the like and subscribe button. Hit that bell notification icon because I'm always chatting people up in the side when this airs for the first time. And if you really like what you saw, you can hit me up with a Lightning Network tip via tippin.me. I will have a link down to that down below. If you don't know how to do it, I did a tutorial and I'll have links for that as well. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow for your daily session.